Hello and welcome to the channel! For those who are here after my last video, welcome back to the Genshin Miku series. I wanted to post this a little earlier, but I caught a cold and sounded terrible, so I had to wait it out before I could record the script and start editing. But I'm back in full health and ready to go! For the new viewers who haven't seen my previous video, where I designed a Hydro Miku, it probably would be easier to start with that one, especially if you're not too familiar with Genshin Impact, but here's a quick overview. For this series, we're making a Miku per region and element of the game and giving her a job or occupation, a weapon, and a basic kit. The region, element, and weapon are chosen randomly, and the goal of the video is to make a splash art for Miku. With the explanations out of the way, let's get started! For our second Miku, we get Hydro, Inazuma, and Spear. I initially started sketching on paper for this one before realizing I was making the exact same mistake as last time and not thinking of a job for her. Luckily, I caught myself early this time. At first, I wanted her to be an idol, since Inazuma is Genshin's equivalent of Japan, and it made sense to give her the same occupation as her real-world counterpart. Problem was, Genshin already has a Hydro idol character with Barbara, and I couldn't think of anything that felt different enough to make it interesting. So I decided to follow in Hydro Miku's footsteps and make her music a secondary part of her character rather than her profession. In the end, I made her a helper, someone who likes going around the neighborhood doing chores and errands for people. Because the game already has a character with a similar role with Thoma, I wanted her to be kinda bad at it. But rather than her incompetence being caused by something like clumsiness, I liked the idea of her being clueless. Like she just didn't know how to do all these things, but was learning along the way. And the best way to do that, in my humble opinion, was to make her a yokai. Because Inazuma is heavily based on Japan and its culture, quite a few of the characters from that region are actually yokai or yokai inspired. And so I decided to use the Kappa, a mischievous turtle-like gremlin that lives in rivers and ponds and likes to play pranks, or just straight up commit crimes. Okay, so maybe not the perfect fit for my Miku, but worry not, dear viewer. I did a bit more research and chose to make her a Kappa Musume instead. Unlike regular Kappa Musume don't strive to cause trouble, usually only asking for food. To do that, they disguise themselves as young women to more easily blend in with the locals of a village. So our Hydro Miku would be a Kappa Musume who decided to make her home in Konda village and integrate into human society by doing chores and helping the village people. Once I decided on what type of yokai she was, the design sort of worked itself out. I gave her a lotus thing to reflect the fact she originally lived in a pond, and decided then and there to give her the ability to summon a flock of kappa for her burst. Since she's a spear user, I tried to incorporate that into her outfit by securing one of her kimono sleeve into her arm guard so she could use her weapon without it hindering her. Funnily enough, I later realized that this had actually been done for another character, specifically the Electro Archon, the Archon of Inazuma, Raiden Shogun, but I don't really play the character, so I completely forgot about that. But I figured it's a small detail, it doesn't really matter if another character has it. I wanted her to use her spear to summon her kappa into battle, so I decided to add it to her splash art. After I decided on a pose I liked, I started drawing, and if you've seen my first video, you already know this is the part where there's a problem. The pose just didn't feel like a Genshin splash art. While Genshin has done a lot of dynamic splash art, most characters are drawn to look like they're posing, with most of them looking at the viewer. There are exceptions of course, but I didn't feel like what I'd done worked that well. So it was back to the drawing board. Okay, it was actually not that bad. I came up with a new pose fairly quickly. I figured, since I wanted a more static pose, quote-unquote, I could just change the way she summoned her kappa friends. Instead of her using her spear, she could use her voice. I thought it'd be a nice way to incorporate her singing. And just like with Hydro Miku, it felt like a nice little nod to her being an idol. And so, after choosing a new pose, I was back on track. One detail that might be hard to see from this angle is her shell. Kappa Musume tend to look indistinguishable from humans, but I still wanted to give her a little something that would tell the viewer this isn't a normal human girl, so I wanted to keep the turtle shell that Kappa usually have. It sits on top of her clothes, both because it's easier to see that way, and also because it was an easy way to show her outfit is part of her transformation, rather than actual clothes that she bought or is actually quote-unquote wearing. Because it's such a unique character detail, I didn't think it would be fun to make her use it when she fights. It probably would be a bit of a nuisance whenever she needs to sit down in game though, but she's not actually real, so we're free to not worry about that. I did end up going back on her design again. I won't add it to the speed paint because it's a lot of small things, and also because it looks really bad on the speed paint part, because I keep turning multiple layers on and off. But I did realize after finishing her splash art that she lacked a bit of detailing. Like I said previously, Genshin is all about small and intricate details. And while I'd purposely decided to keep things simple with my previous Miku, I kind of really wanted to emulate Genshin's usual style with Hydro Miku. I added some patterns to her top and added some asymmetry to her stockings. I also ended up changing how she wears her top. I'd made it so she showed her shoulders, but just like with the sleeve tucked into the arm guard, this was also a look that was already shared by Raiden. And I could not have two details that looked like a pre-existing characters, so no shoulders. I'm sorry guys, I know, it was the best part of the design. Just kidding. And here's our Miku. For her burst, she sings a song and calls forth her Kappa friends to aid her in battle. They leap towards surrounding enemies in waves, dealing hydro damage upon contact. For her normal attacks, she performs 3 spear strikes and 1 last strike using her shell. For her elemental skill, she dives into a hydro puddle, momentarily regaining her Kappa appearance and swimming rapidly on both water and land. In this form, she can attack opponents by plunging through them and dealing hydro damage. In-game, I imagine it will look similar to how Tapetlisaurus burrow and leap out of the ground. Hydro Miku is a Kappa Musume who made her home in Konda village. Fascinated with human culture, she tries to integrate by doing chores for the villagers. But because she has very little knowledge of how things work in the human world, her attempts are usually clumsy or mildly inconvenient. Luckily, she is a fast learner, and she never makes the same mistake twice, soldiering on with the guidance of the villagers, who have grown quite fond of their newest inhabitant. Despite living among humans, she has not forgotten her roots and visits her Kappa family quite regularly. And there we go! Looking back at the design, I think I should have focused a little more on the helper aspect of her character for her visuals. I think nowadays I'd probably do something that looked maybe a little more like this, but all in all I'm pretty happy with the current design. What about you guys? What are your thoughts on the design? Would you add her to your team? How would you design your own Hydro Miku? Please share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. I'd love to read them all. If you don't want to miss the next Miku design, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified once I post the next video. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!